I know I look like crap, but this is like the only time I can record this review. So I guess I'll do that because I gotta go somewhere like across the country like in the next few days. So this is like the only time I have to record this review. But anyways, Stranger Things has just finished its fourth season. I know. I said I was gonna review with my father, but he's busy, so he can't be a part of it. Don't worry, he'll be back for some other reviews in the future. And yeah, Stranger Things season 4 is wrapped up, and it made me cry. It made me cry like 6 times throughout season 4. 4 times alone in the last episode. Um Stranger Things is one of the most popular shows ever right now. And that doesn't make sense, ever right now. Anyways, it's one of the hottest shows on the planet, and of course I like it. But let me go through my history with the show, like I do with all my other reviews. So I watched season 1, not like a long time, but probably like after it was like after it came out. Because when Stranger Things 1 came out, it was huge. Like day one, people were like, "Yo, this show, it is a jam." And I watched the show probably like maybe 4 or 5 months after it aired, so the hype had kind of died down a little bit. But I watched it, and man, I fell in love with it. I just thought the characters and the story and everything, it was awesome, and I was just so into it. And like it had like so many great moments in season 1. Even now, I still think season 1 has so many great moments in it. And I could not wait for season 2. And then season 2 came out and I didn't like it. But I must have been like 14 or something when that came out. I just remember thinking like it was really slow. I wasn't really into it. It just didn't capture the magic. Um but I don't know. I've seen that season twice now. And now I'm at the point where I think season 2 is a pretty good season. Not as good as season 1, not bad, but pretty good. But that one episode where 11 goes on that little adventure quest with that other lost sister. I don't think it's like a terrible episode or anything. I just think it's just kind of like, okay, like this could have been a subplot mixed in with other episodes. It didn't need to be its own episode. It still wouldn't have been great, but I think just the idea that it was its own episode by itself, that's what makes it so like, what? Okay. Um so season 2, pretty good. Not as good as season 1 though. Season 1, I genuinely, maybe it's not. Maybe if I went back and watched it, because I rewatched it like a few months ago and it still holds up. Man, my hair looks really bad, but I still really love that season. I think it's a, I mean it does it have problems, yeah, but I think for me it is just like an absolutely perfect season of television. Season 3 came out 2 years after that on July 4th, and I kind of felt the same way I did towards season 3, or I mean season 2 rather, where I was like, yeah, it's good. It's another good season of Stranger Things, but it's not something that I think at that point I was like, I guess this show is just never going to have a season as good as season 1. It's still an entertaining show. I still like it. I still thought season 3 was very good, but I guess it's just never going to be as good as season 1. It's an entertaining show, but, um, I did really like a lot about season 3 though. I don't want to seem like I hated it. I just thought that, I felt like they were kind of playing the same thing over and over again, just a little different variation of it. Um, like for example, I mean every season has all the characters, they're all split up and they all go on their little adventures, and at the end there's a big moment where they all come together and you're like, "Oh, wow." The adults are in one part of the show and the kids are in another part of the show, and then the teens are in another part of the show, and then the villains are in another part of the show, and in the last episode it all comes together in a great climax. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But by the end of season 3, I thought, okay, this show, I wouldn't say it's getting repetitive, but I will say that it does feel like it's sort of it's pulling the same thing over and over again. And I know what you're thinking, isn't that repetitive? Repetitive is if it like gets like really like bullshitty at times, like, and if it gets bad. But Stranger Things, I guess for some people they'd call it repetitive, but for me, I feel like, hey, it's entertaining for what it is. It's like kind of like that show You. I love that show, but every season, at least the first 2 seasons, basically have the same plot. Like, it's basically the same thing. But I still love it, you know? I don't mind if you're doing the same thing again as long as it's good, you know? Every Marvel movie is basically the same, you know? But, anyways, I'll be right back. You're all looking so beautiful today. Anyways, so, Stranger Things, at this point, when season 4 came out, because it's been like a good 3 years since season 3. So, at this point, when when Stranger Things 4 came out, I was like, oh, I forgot. I watched Stranger Things. That's a show that I watch. I guess I gotta watch this season. You know, I was kind of, I think at this point, I don't know. I guess I just sort of, maybe it's because it's been such a long time since season 3, and a lot has happened in my life since then. Like, I am not the same person I was when I watched season 3 of Stranger Things. So, at this point, I was like, okay, I guess it's kind of like revisiting an old friend, but you weren't really that close with them. But then when you revisit them, you're like, oh, I guess I was that close with them. Because Stranger Things 4 is a bop. This is pretty much the best season of the show, I think. And I want to talk about it because it's awesome. Does this season have problems? Yeah, it's not a perfect season. Is it the best season of the show? I think so. Is it flawless? No, hell no. But I think for what the show is, I think the show is at the top of its game this season. So, there's a lot to cover here. Let's go through it. So when I first heard the run times for the season, it's like every episode is going to be longer than 1 hour. At first I was like, damn, there's going to be a lot of filler. But then I realized, I was like, it's not like they were like, I love Breaking Bad, and I love Better Call Saul, and I love the good seasons of Dexter. But did they need to be 47 minutes every episode? No. So many episodes of those shows could have been cut down. And that's what I initially thought with Stranger Things when I heard the runtimes. I was like, these don't, I'm sure I'm going to watch them and I'm going to be like, they do not need to be an hour and a half long each episode. But then I thought about it. And I said, it's not required that they have to make a show that's an hour and a half long. So if they're saying, hey, we want every episode of this show to be this long, that must mean they have a really big story to tell. They must have a lot to say. Or maybe they just wanted to get the most out of that budget Netflix gave them. Either way, I was like, okay, you know what? I support creators being able to make their stories however they want. And if they want to make every episode freaking 2 hours long, go for it, you know? It's not like the Marvel Netflix shows where it's like, yes, you have to be 13 episodes and they each have to be an hour long. It's like, no, these are going to be 9 episodes, but hey, if you want to make them an hour and a half, go ahead. So I didn't mind that they were super long. And to be honest with you, I didn't binge the show all at once. I kind of watched the first volume over a period of about a week. So I wasn't really bothered by the long runtime, you know. I'd watch like one episode a night and I was like, that was good, you know. And you know what? The last episode of the show is 2.5 hours long, and I didn't feel it. Like when it was over, I was like, damn, that did not feel like 2.5 hours. Like there are some 1 hour and a half movies that felt longer than that. You know, like it felt like just, I don't know. I didn't mind that it was 2.5 hours long. So, man, I'm going to get into spoilers now. So if you have not seen the season, get out. But season 4 of Stranger Things. Let's go through some of the characters, let's go through some of the story arcs, and let's go through why this season is great. I think this season actually kind of saved the show. I think this season is surprisingly very good. Now, let's get through some complaints. I don't have too many, but let's get through some things about the season that I thought weren't great. Number 1, the whole storyline with Eddie and the bullies I found to be pretty weak. I love Eddie as a character. We'll get to him later. But this storyline, basically, this one guy thinks Eddie killed his girl, so he spends the whole season hunting him down. And at first I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting. It adds a lot of tension to the story. It added a lot of tension to, like, if, you feel danger for Eddie. You're like, oh, crap, I don't want him to go. I don't want these guys to find him. I was actually really interested in this story. But unfortunately, when it got to the end of that storyline in the last episode, I just sort of felt like, oh, they're not really characters. They're just obstacles for the main characters to go up against. And it felt very anticlimactic. Like, oh, he meets up with Lucas and he fights Lucas and then he just dies. Okay, it felt like this didn't need to be here. It was only like, in hindsight, it really, like, it didn't really have a payoff. It did, but a very weak one, I think. And that's a shame, because it could have been something really interesting. Another complaint is it's hard to talk about this. Hopper. So Hopper died at the end of season 3, but then at the end of the episode they're like, no, not the American, and you're like, oh, Hopper's alive. Okay, you don't want Hopper to die. Fine, whatever, that's fine. But the Russia stuff in this season, I didn't find it as boring as everybody else. Everybody who I saw talking about it were like, this sucks. And I was just kind of like, it's not bad. It's interesting. It's okay. But yeah, I like the other stuff better. I like the stuff going on with Mike and Will and Jonathan, and the stuff with Eleven, and the stuff with, Steve and Dustin. I like all that stuff better. This is fine. It gave me the sense that maybe they wanted to kill Hopper, but then they were like, oh, well, then Joyce has literally nothing to do. So we need Hopper to be alive. I don't know. I don't know. I guess Joyce and Hopper just aren't my favorite characters in the show. I like them, but I like them when they're interacting with other characters. I feel like they feel like they're in a sort like a different show than the rest of the crew. Like they feel like they're in some like war movie from the 60s, not a supernatural show. Up until the end when, the Demogorgon gets involved. It wasn't bad, but I felt like maybe Hopper should have stayed dead. As much as I love that character. But let's go through some of my favorite characters this season. First off, Eddie, as I mentioned earlier. Eddie was awesome. He was hilarious. He went out like a badass. That rock scene was amazing, and I loved his death scene. I thought he went out so well. I mean, it made me cry, his death. It really did. Stranger Things as a show, I don't know why, but it just makes me cry like a lot. Especially the first season and the fourth season. It just gets to me. There's a scene in season 1, and there's a scene where they find a dead deer, and just seeing the deer on the floor and hearing the noises it was making, and just like it made me cry. Like, I'm not joking. I love animals, so I don't know. That scene, I don't know. It just made me cry. But that we're getting off topic. Anyway, Eddie, his death scene was so well done, and that scene where Dustin goes to Eddie's uncle and tells him Eddie died a hero. He died protecting this town that hated him. Oh man, it got to me. It really got to me. Another favorite character. Everybody's been saying this, but I'm gonna say it too. Max. Max as a character was so well done in this season. Like, she feels like she's got, like, you just feel so bad for her, but like you never get the sense that she like is throwing herself a pity party. You know what I mean? I hate like when characters are like, "Oh, my life sucks." You know what I mean? Like, even if your life does suck, like, just stop telling us. You know what I mean? Like, just show, don't tell. But Max, you never see her complain or anything like that, but she's just like, God, I felt so bad for her this season. All the emotional turmoil she's getting to. Like, she has a horrible home life, and there's also this crazy monster creature that wants to murder her. It's very sad. And that running up that hill scene, probably the best scene in this whole show, to be honest with you. And that's saying something, because Stranger Things is a show with so many great moments. I'll tell you one thing Stranger Things is really good at. For all its faults, one thing that Stranger Things is amazing at is payoff. When they pay off something that they've been building up for a season, they are so good at it. I mean, it usually turned out to be like a masterful scene that's either intense, or emotional or funny or like it's really good at that. So yeah, Max was a great character. There's this conversation going online. Should she have stayed dead? Maybe, but my thing is like, yeah, she's not dead, but she's not doing well. I mean, like okay, listen, like I feel like a lot of people are saying like Max should have died. It should have added stakes to the story. It's like, okay, even if she didn't die, do you see her, bro? She got fucked up. Like, it's bad. She's like comatose. Like, dude, that's like, even if you're not dead, that sucks. You know, that's still tragic for her character. I don't understand why you want her dead. What does that add to the show? I actually think this is more tragic than if she did die. So I don't know what you wanted. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we don't have stakes for the show. Bro, one of the characters is literally brain dead right now. Like, what do you want? Jesus, I don't understand those people. I really don't. Because Max is basically as good as dead now. Even if she does come back, that still doesn't change the fact that she got fucked up by Vecna. We'll get to Vecna later. Steve is probably my favorite character in the show overall. He didn't really do much this season, but he's still one of my favorite characters. I still love him. Robin, another great character. They made her character. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a while since I've seen season 3, so maybe I'm wrong. But I feel like they made her character a little goofier this season. Like they made her a little bit more of a klutz. Like I'm like, I don't know. She felt a little more competent in season 3. In season 4, they sort of changed her character a bit to feel she's like more of kind of like more Steve. Like her and Steve, they're not like stupid, but they're kind of clumsy. They made her clumsier. That's a good word for it. I didn't mind it. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, they changed her character a little bit. I didn't mind it or anything. But yeah, I liked Robin. Nancy, again, not much like character development for her, but she was pretty badass this season. Jonathan did nothing except drive around. He didn't really do anything. Will did nothing but cry a lot. Will, I feel like he's probably the biggest missed opportunity. Of course, we have one more season after this, so I mean he could do a lot in that season. But for this season, I felt like they could have done a lot more with him. Um, but I really like that scene where he tells Mike, without actually telling Mike, that he has a crush on him. Again, that's a really emotional scene. I don't know how Mike didn't notice Will crying, like, right next to him. But Jonathan's look, like after that scene happens and Will starts crying towards the window, Jonathan's look, like the look he gives, like his face is enough to make me tear up. I'm not even kidding. And that scene where Will and Jonathan have that heart to heart, and Jonathan's like, "I'm your brother, and I'm always gonna help you." Like I'm tearing up right now thinking about it. It was so well done, and yeah, that was one of the scenes that made me cry for real. I love that they acknowledge that Jonathan and Will haven't really done much. Like they haven't had a lot of scenes together, even though they were super close in season 1. Yeah, great stuff. Um, Mike didn't really do much. A lot of characters didn't really do much this season. Like Mike, he didn't really do anything except be like, 11, I love you. And then 11's like, oh, I have the power of friendship. And then she wins. That's another complaint. I forgot the dumbest shit. The dumbest shit in this season. So I will not defend this is when 11's like, Vecna, if you attack my friends again, I will kill you. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like you have Vecna right here. Just fucking ice her ass. Or his ass, my bad. I don't know. But like what are you doing? Like just kill him. But whatever. That was the dumbest thing this whole season. Is like if you attack me again, I will kill you. It's like, are you serious? This is why oh my god. This is why we have 4 seasons of this show. Jesus. Anyways, Vecna. Let's talk about Vecna. I thought Vecna was decent. He was a good threat. He was scary. Actor did a good job. I like the twist where he ended up being one. Good villain. Not a great villain, not one of the best, but he was good for what he was. Definitely the best villain of the show so far. Yeah, I liked him. Not much else. I don't really have much to say about him, to be honest with you. I don't think he's great, but I do think he worked for what he was. Oh, man, characters. I already talked about Hopper and Joyce. My least favorite character in the show is Murray. I don't find Murray funny at all. I think he's annoying as fuck. And I think, ironically, I feel like the storyline with the adults this season was the most, like, childish, which is kind of ironic, but whatever. Um, oh, I felt bad for Chrissy. I was like, no, Chrissy! I thought you were going to be an actual character! Oh, no! Her death was brutal as hell. I like that scene where 11 hit Angela in the face with the roller skate. I was like, yeah, yes, Queen Slay. I didn't say that, but I was like, yeah, that was funny. And then 11 got arrested. I was like, oh shit, Jesus. Um, yeah, Angela was a bitch. I hated people online that I didn't hate them, but people online were like, Angela's a really cartoonish villain, and it's like, did you not see that scene in season 1 where the bully had Dustin and is like, I will cut his teeth out if you don't jump into that lake right there. It's like, come on, this show's always been really cartoonish. Um, yeah, Dustin was, he was Dustin. He was hilarious. Lucas. So Lucas, his storyline kind of tied in with the bullies that were hunting down Eddie, and I feel like they could have done more in setting that up. Like they could have been more tension, but like not tension, but there could have been more of like, like I'm drifting apart from my old group of friends and I want to be with these new people. There could have been a little more of that, I think. But hey, the season's long enough, so I'm trying to think. I know I'm gonna forget some characters because this show has a lot of characters, and I admire how this show actually is pretty ambitious. It's got so many characters. It's almost like Game of Thrones at this point. There's so many storylines, so many characters. I mean, you kind of have to make your episodes this long if you want to get to all of them. Yeah, Argyle was funny. He made me laugh. He wasn't annoying. Some people found him annoying. I didn't think he was annoying. I thought he was funny. Um, yeah. So yeah, there's basically 4 storylines this season. I've already talked about the one with the pizza guys. Really pretty good. Liked it. I already talked about the Russian stuff. The Russian stuff was fine. Probably my least favorite. It wasn't bad. I was just kind of like, okay, you need to give these characters something to do. Fine, whatever. Then there was the main crew, which was my favorite, of Steve, Robin, Nancy, Dustin, Erica, Lucas, and Eddie, and probably somebody I'm missing. That was my favorite. That was the one where I'm like, this is Stranger Things. Maybe just because I love Steve. He's the best mom, and I love him. I want to be like him when I grow up. And then one more character, 11. I have not talked about 11. 11, this season, I feel like more than ever. I mean, she's always kind of been this way, but more than ever, I felt like this season she was kind of like a walking plot point. But she wasn't bad. I thought them bringing back Papa was kind of stupid. But then as it went along, I was like, okay, sure. Man, I said this was like my favorite season. I've been complaining a lot. But I wanna preface this by saying I love this season. I'm just complaining a little bit about the writing, but I still really enjoyed this season overall. There's so many entertaining scenes. It was always super charming. Dialogue's not always the best, but the actors do a good job in making it sound a lot better than it is. And yeah, I did like Eleven's journey this season. I found this was probably, despite the fact that she was a walking plot point, I also felt like this was the deepest that the show has went into her character since maybe the second season, and I admired them for that. And let's get to the finale, I guess. Not much else to talk about. Finale, like I said, it was 2.5 hours long, but I didn't feel it. It still felt shorter than Lightyear. Um, yeah, I mean, it was really good. I loved it. And then they beat Vecna. I don't think Vecna's dead. I think Vecna just took off. I might be wrong. I don't know. But, yeah, they beat Vecna. Everybody's okay except Eddie, who's dead, and Max, who's fucked. But, yeah, and then I love the scene where they all go out, and, oh, man, I love the scene where they all go out and they help after the earthquake. Everybody goes and they give food and they give donations. It's such a nice scene, especially with what times we're going through right now. There's so much horrible shit going on in the world. I mean, there was just, the Roe versus Wade thing, which is just terrible. It's just so sad. I don't know. This just made me happy. Maybe, and, obviously it was probably filmed like before a lot of stuff happened, but at the same time, I don't know. It just made me happy to see it. I love that scene where Robin was what's that girl's name? Fuck. Vicky? No, what the is her name Vicky? I'm sorry. Whatever that girl's name was, that scene where Robin was talking to her and Steve just smiles. That's great. I love it. I love it. Um and the season leaves off on a big cliffhanger because the Upside Down is finally coming into the real world. It's finally merging, and Hawkins is fucked. So they said season 5 is gonna have a big time jump. I don't know what that means. I don't know how they're gonna do that because the cliffhanger at the end is like, "Yo, the next season we got to get right into the action." So I don't know what they're gonna do, but I'm excited for the last season. I don't think they'll mess it up. I think it'll be a good ending. Um, I think it'll probably be like a Return of the King style ending where you have the climax and then like the epilogue is like an hour long. There's like 19 different endings. And with a show like this, I'd expect that. So they got one more season to wrap this show up, and I really hope they do it in a satisfying way. And I think they will. I trust the Duffer Bros. I really do. Um, Stranger Things 4 is flawed, for sure. It's got issues. But I think for what it tried to do, I think it did a great job. I think it was a great story. It was a great mystery. It was definitely the most disturbing season. Definitely the darkest season, and I admire that. I loved everything they did with Max. I loved everything they did with Eddie. I loved everything they did with a lot of characters. Some of the stuff I did have problems with, like I said, like the Russian stuff I wasn't crazy about, but I still enjoyed it. I wasn't bored or anything while watching it. 11, I said she was a walking plot point, but I still found her character the most interesting this season. So even the characters that didn't really do much, like I mentioned, like Jonathan and Will and Mike, like their storyline probably feels the least important out of everything, but I still enjoyed watching it. I never felt like it was a waste of time. And there was that pretty badass one take, and I think it was episode 4. It was after 11 got arrested. That was a great scene. Um, I feel like everything I complain about this season, they're not like huge complaints. They're just kind of minor issues I have. But I think overall, Stranger Things is sort of like a blockbuster, entertaining show. I think you watch it, you enjoy it. Do you have problems with it? Yeah, absolutely. But it's so entertaining, and it has so many great moments that you almost don't even care. I really love the show, and you know what? This season was so good that it actually inspired me. I'm like, I'm gonna rewatch this whole show, especially since the last season's coming out. I really want to rewatch this entire show, really get the full picture. So I'm excited for season 5. Really enjoyed the show. Um, and yeah, I mean, Stranger Things, like I said, it's a flawed show. Some people say it should have ended after season 1. I wouldn't go that far. I think if you have more story to tell, you should. You should keep going. I don't think the show should have ended after season 1. I mean, I think season 2 and 3, I don't think they're perfect, but I think they justify their existence. I think they're good. And I think this season is the best season of the show. I think it's definitely a return to form for the series. I think it's the shot in the arm the series needed. So yeah, I enjoyed this season. Scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 7 or 8. I think there are moments in the show that are like a 10. Episode 4, Dear Billy, I'd probably give that episode a 10. You know what? I'm gonna give this episode an 8. This season an 8, an 8.5, maybe even a 9. I really like this show. I really like this season, and I would watch it again. And I probably will watch it again. I was surprised actually by how good the season was because I went into it like, yeah, I guess I gotta watch it, just to be like, hey, I watched it, I watched Stranger Things, I've seen everything up to this point. I guess I might as well watch it. And by the end of episode 2, I was like, man, I forgot I love this show. Um, yeah, so much good television right now. We got Stranger Things, we got The Boys, which is I don't want to spoil too much for the upcoming review, but The Boys this season, damn. Better Call Saul comes back next week. Excited. And Miss Marvel is pretty good. I'll review that when that comes out, when that finishes, I mean. And we also have that Game of Thrones prequel. Hopefully I can finish Game of Thrones before that comes out. Harley Quinn season 3 comes out, which is alright, cool. I like Harley Quinn. It's a good show. Entertaining, funny. What We Do in the Shadows comes back. And this is not a TV show, but they just announced the release date of God of War Ragnarok, which is going to be good. I'm excited for that. That's going to be good. And they need to release the pre-order. I will pre-order that shit like no tomorrow. So, yeah. Anyways, Stranger Things. It's a good show.